Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage, and it looks like we've got a couple people in the chat room already. That's awesome to see. I appreciate everybody who showed up early, and you'll have to bear with me. I'm a little bit tired. It's been a long day, but before we kind of dive into everything, I want to jump over real quick and take a look at the follow-up tune from the Octane Booster, the timing video that I did earlier this week. The gentleman who had done this is the original timing that we're looking at, the knock retard that we're pulling out of it, ran some VP Octane Booster, and this is what his retard map looks like now. Look at that. It almost completely cleaned it up. Not necessarily a viable option because it's a little bit expensive. He's looking into possibly switching over to methanol injection. But I thought that was pretty cool. This is a prime example of like getting a lot more power out of your vehicle. But how's everybody doing tonight? We got some familiar faces. Harry's in here, Ross is in here. Looks like we got a couple new faces in here. Want to say hello to everybody. And Ross is talking about his Goblin. If you guys have not seen a DF Goblin, check that thing out. It's pretty cool. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this and see what all is going on. Hello, everybody. Take a look at this advanced table. Man, he picked up quite a bit of timing. So pretty interesting to see that Octane Booster actually completely solved this problem for him finally. I do have a new book on the way. It is one that was suggested to me for doing engine rebuilds on the LS. I'm anxious to dig into it to see if it's a little bit better than this other one. This other one's not bad though. Hey Zero, what's going on, brother? It's good to see you in here. How is everybody doing tonight? Hey Emerson. Emerson asks, anything on why a car would die at idle when coming to a stop, or advice for tuning, timing for a cam? Timing for a cam, if there's a lot of overlap, you probably are going to need to pull some timing out from the factory. If you look at, let me see if I can open up a file over here where we can look at some of the stock timing on something and get an idea. Bear with me here as my computer warms up. And let's look at what we've got. I've got, let's look at 2005 GTO. How's that sound? So if we jump over into Spark and we are looking for the idle Spark advanced table. No, actually, it's the adaptive, right? No, it should be this one. This table is a little bit different than the ones I normally see, but you see where you've got some of these areas that are a little bit higher. That might be a little bit too high on a cam. The coast down situation might be the same, where you need to dial some of this down in this area where you operate in the idle. But that being said, you need to get your airflow dialed in on idle first. A lot of times people will try and start messing with timing on idle when it is actually an airflow issue. If we go over to the airflow, we have some basic airflow maps that we can look at, and then after that we have maps that will actually update. They have an adaptive system, kind of like long-term fuel trims, where we try to set a set point of, say, 850 RPMs for our base idle set point. So we come in here on this map and we bump this stuff up and we say that we want this all to be 850. Then what the ECU does is it tries to adjust the fueling and timing to reach 850, but we still have to adjust the air flow to match what we're seeing. A lot of times, this one's a little bit different. I'm not used to seeing this one. A lot of times there will be an actual airflow map like this that we need to make bumps. This one is an adjustment map. See, we got the transition, but you can see that the offsets are in RPMs, and this is the corrections that it makes to the airflow map. If we're spot on It's not correcting the airflow map. If we get outside of it, though, it will start correcting the airflow map. So work on getting your airflow dialed in first, Emerson. Well, you've got to have idle airflow somewhere. What are you working on, Emerson? Your Pontiac? You're just going to have VE tables that you deal with then, if that makes any sense. Hey, Joe. Hey, Bill, welcome back. Hey, Reese, welcome, man. What time is it over there? Yeah, Emerson, pull up your standard airflow map on this thing and maybe add a little bit of airflow in your RPM range. So look at where your map sensor is on idle, and if you're looking for that 800 RPM range, you might have to add some airflow there, and then pull a little bit of timing out of the same area for your spark table. So if you don't have a specific idle one, come in there, look at your, see like this, this is way too much timing for idle right there. If you have a cam on something like that, I would come in here and I would kind of flatten this area out. Yeah, I'd probably leave that the same. Just try and hit your idle areas. Oh, awesome, man. Awesome. Does that kind of answer your question, Emerson? Does that give you some insight as to some things that you can try on your cam? As I said, don't get too carried away of your timing. Pull some timing back out as you get a lopier cam. The stock advanced timing will mess with it. And then, you know, you're going to have extra airflow in that bottom end, so you have to tune appropriately. Yeah, and by all means, you know, send me a copy of your tune, your current tune, if you want me to take a look at it. And while we wait for the next step, let me go ahead and tell everybody thank you as usual for all of the new subscribers. We're getting ready to break 3,300. Probably going to do it tonight, which is amazing. And I want to thank all the patrons out there. If you guys are interested, boom, look at that. There's a bar down there below that says the address. And of course, there's always a link down in the description, but I'm not going to ham that up too much. Hey, Andrew, still have huge issues trying to figure out the histogram, trying to tune my math. Okay. I've got it to get figures, but something seems wrong because when I multiply by half, it idles like crap. Bill, I have not gotten a chance to do that. This last week's been kind of ugly. I need to dig into all the VE tables. Andrew, let's jump in here. Let's look at something. The big thing on is that Andrew's talking about setting up his histogram for his math error. I don't have any data in here, but let's look at what is required. The first thing is, are you able to use the generic error, AFR error, or EQ error math? So we've got, this is probably a bad example because this may not have a wideband in it. Let's see. Let me find a log with a wideband in it real quick. Bear with me. Oh, and I need to put it on the screen so you guys can actually see what the hell I'm talking about. Okay. I think we got something that we can work with here. So we have EQ ratio. We've got. Let me make sure that we're not in speed density here, though. Mass airflow. No, okay, we're getting mass airflow readings, supposedly. We should be able to do this one then. Okay. Andrew, to double check, we're going to come in here, look at our graphs, do our graphs layout, and it should be pretty straightforward. We should be able to use the generic mass error In this case, oh, that's because I've got a filter on there. That's why the data is not showing up. Basically, the EQ ratio, if we come down here and look at lambda and AFR under the mask, try and use the default EQ ratio on your map first. See if that works. That's the big one. If that works, you know, this should be steering you in the right direction. If you are still getting situations where it's lean, Andrew, are going leaner, you might be fighting your short-term and long-term fuel trim, so you need to make sure that you are not in closed loop. See, in this situation, closed loop is active, so this would not be a viable one to make changes off of, if that makes sense. Whenever you are tuning your mass airflow sensor or your speed density, you can't be in closed loop. You want to make sure that you are in open loop. You don't want to have anything else. You can't be in dynamic airflow for math. You want to make sure that you have everything isolated, because if you don't, you will be making the incorrect changes to your curve while trying to make those changes. Bill, on the finding colder spark plugs, your best bet is to find the spark plug for your vehicle, and then there will be one number that is the heat range. You go higher to go colder on the heat range number. So you will have to decipher the part number, but it should be, this section of the number is kind of the plug specifics as far as like the threading and the length and things like that. And then this section is what the heat range is. And then it said heat range, the higher the number is colder. So you know for sure that you are in open loop and there are no long-term or short-term corrections. What do your AFRs look like? I mean, whenever you make these changes and it starts idling like crap, Andrew, what happens to your AFRs while it's idling? Yeah, I would use EQ also. You know, EQ ratio is better. I mean, it's subjective, but I believe that EQ is just, nowadays with everything being E85 or E10 or E15, you know that you're always going to be dialing in your fueling table properly on EQ ratio. Yeah, Emerson, I would try pulling that timing down on your cam and see how it goes. Go super fast, so you're getting really rich. So your idle air table is super fat off the wideband. Shouldn't run. You got too much air on your idle table then. Try pulling some air out of the idle table as opposed to your MAF table. See if that helps. Harry Johnson. Harry Johnson, is that your real name? Yeah, Andrew, try pulling it out of your idle table. So if you actually were to go in and look for, I don't know what your platform is, but if you were to go in and look for a idle, there should be a, well, this is a torque based. Are you on a torque based vehicle, Andrew? What are you on? What are you working on, Andrew? That'll help clear up the error. Harry says, I have issues setting up my math histogram as well. I can get it to read an AFR, but when I set it up for EQ, the boxes turn blue, like they are populating, but no values recorded. Harry, you don't have a filter applied, do you? Because that's generally what it looks like whenever you have a filter applied. So if you were to look at your setup on your graph, if you have a function in here underneath filtering, it will block out, but you will see the blue block move around through the different cells. Andrew, 09 4.8 Sierra. So I have to be close enough. Do 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 do. Man, there's a lot going on these. So, Andrew, does this what your idle tabs look like on your Sierra? Hey, Brendan. Just cold air and headers. Okay. Man, cold air intake and headers should not be causing you idle issues. Shut up, Alexa. Have you bumped your base set point up? I mean, you shouldn't be having issues. You've got fueling issues. If you are pegging out on that, bump your base set point up 100 RPMs and then come into your proportional airflow and maybe bump this up a little bit, multiply this thing by 1.25, let's go up 25%. Make those changes a little bit bigger. Leave the enable RPM error at 50. And then, you know, that's weird. You haven't changed anything besides cold air and headers. Yeah, you know what, Andrew? Shoot me a log and a copy of your tune to the info address. It's in the description. Reese, you were asking about a Gen 3 4L60. Let's look at a setup like that. Let me see if I can find. I've got a Pontiac on here. I say that. Reese is asking about holding gears. Look into holding gears in first, second, and third, but go through the gears normal and drive. Car has a power shift button. So I don't know if that's the pattern X. See if this thing's probably a manual transmission. Let me see if I can find one Reese that's got an automatic transmission that we can look at. Okay, let's take a look at this. This is 4L60. It's a Silverado, but this should be about the same. So we have a performance option on this thing. Here is our performance shift scheduling. this should be the one that you want to edit on, is anything that is tied back to performance. Now, if you go in, unfortunately, I don't have a way of showing you, Reese, but if you go in and look at the scanner, there should be a PID that you can log that will show you which mode that you're in. So as you toggle from one to the other, it should give you tell you which mode that you're in performance. It should line up with these performance tables as far as that you can then adjust these for your shift speeds and your shift RPMs appropriately to hold gears. Have you already tried that, Reese? Bill asked, I have a 4L60E but have very limited tuning options. Is it possible to do a segment swap just to get more tuning tables? Honestly, Bill, I do not know. That would be a question that you would probably need to pose over at the HP2 tuner forums. Segment swaps are, I've only done a couple of them in the past, and it's been pretty straightforward stuff. The question, I guess, is, is if the transmission controller is going to be the same, and then what applications between the two are going to work out for you. Excuse me, guys. Yeah, Harry S. Watts brings up a point. We're talking about the histogram. Also, if your wideband disappears from your scanner whenever you start logging it, which sometimes happens, especially if you're using the serial connection, sometimes you have to reboot and it will do kind of the same thing where the histogram will not populate data out. Yeah, Reese, sounds good, man. Try that out and then let me know if that does what you're trying to do with the performance stuff, where you leave your normal setup as is and then jump your performance over on. And this changed. It's a little bit different on the Gen 4 stuff where we have a little bit more control. Unfortunately, it is what it is on the Gen 3s. But there are performance tables that you can come in here and play with and change these 3-4 shifts. And then, of course, the downshift the same way. So try those out and then see if you can toggle back. Make sure they don't mess up your normal shift tables. Man, guys, I apologize once again. I'm kind of out of it tonight, a little bit tired, so trying to keep my head on straight here. Harry, whenever you say that you can get your histogram working properly in AFR but not EQ, are you using the default AFR math? Error math, or are you having to do custom error math? And then the same question, whenever you switch everything back over to EQ, are you using the default math, or are you using custom math on that? Because that can make a difference. Brian, I personally use the AEM Uego. I've had good luck with it. I'll drop a link in the chat for you. Brian asked, which wideband would you use for a first-time tuner? I've ran the Uego on 3 or 4 cars now. There we go. Brian, that's the one that I use because you can easily change from AFR to Lambda on that one. Harry, man, that's a weird situation. So you're going in and you're changing the output of your gauge to EQ. Are you having to use convert AFR to EQ whenever you try to do EQ? Josh. No. Okay, Josh, here's the problem. Josh, okay, first, Josh, you don't have to have the ProLink to do serial. Arcan. Serial will work with any serial output wideband. You just have to have a USB to or serial to USB converter. Uh, the issue that you're having is because you're having to do user math to fix your EQ error ratio. It will no longer work with the built-in math, so you have to use a second user math parameter. Let me show you what I'm talking about, Josh. I had to do the same thing for a while. So if you go in on your math parameters, and this was my old, well, this is an AFR to EQ error ratio. This thing basically you have to pile all of your math into one formula to get it to work. And so you can't just have like a standard EQ error ratio. If you look at the factory EQ error ratio, it uses this right here for EQ. That is the default EQ. It will not work. So you have to come in, do a custom one, and then not use the default EQ. Edit that variable. Find your sensor wherever it's at. If you're using the ProLink with the analog, use the analog one, do your voltage in, and then where that one is at 30,011.10, then you have to do your math scaling to that one. But it all has to be in this custom math. So then you will have custom EQ error. And so, whatever you have to do, you have to take this and, divide it by whatever the thing tells you. That long formula. Does that make sense, Josh? Divide it by that long formula that's in your guide, in your manual that came with your AFR. And then you have to use that one in your graphs layout whenever you go to your EQ error for your math. Go down in there into your user defined and use your custom EQ. So that all has to be in that custom math formula whenever you do scaling. Reese says, probably covered it already. My LS is cammed. Drilled the throttle body out to make it run, but when I tune, I'll put stock throttle on. How do I get it to idle with a lumpy cam, i.e. airflow? You got, okay, Reese, yeah, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Well, and the car bouncing and jolting because the cam is a different situation. You need to dial your air in on your cam. Basically, your air is going to probably be about double in that area where you idle at, and then you need to pull some timing out. Pull about 10 degrees of timing in that area also, and then it should start to level out and idle all right. And then look at the areas where it starts to buck and maybe dial about 4 degrees of timing out in that. Big lopey cams really cause your timing to throw off in the lower RPMs. Yeah, Josh, try that out and let me know, man, because if need be, I can help you sort that out. Jeff H. asks, can an aftermarket wideband be installed in an existing O2 bung in place of one of the stock sensors, if before or after the cat? Preferably, Jeff, before the cat for tuning. And you can do that. The only issue that you might have is whether or not you want to use that narrowband sensor that you're replacing. Some widebands out there provide an output that takes the wideband and then replicates a narrowband signal, so you can do a one-for-one replacement and then you basically build like a harness to go to the factory harness for the narrowband. But if you are tuning and it's something that you're just wanting to temporarily do, by all means, pull the stock one out. You're going to be disabling those narrow bands while you're tuning anyway, so won't hurt anything. But as I said, I would try and put it in front of the cat if possible. Bill Carini asks, using MPVI2 without Pro, how can I log a wideband? I haven't got one because I can't log it. I can still watch it. But yes, Bill, you can log a wideband on the MPVI2 using the serial option. So that gauge, the AEM 300300X series that I linked up top, has a serial output. I've got a video here. Let me find the link for it since I'm talking about it, that goes into using that. I use that currently with my MPVI2. It works fine. Reads in. And then you can also get the the CAN bus one. The CAN bus one, I do not know from personal experience, but I talked to somebody the other day that said the CAN bus one will work. So I think on my next one, I will do the CAN bus one because it seems like a cool way of doing it. And supposedly that CAN bus one actually reads at a higher rate. So the standard setup, like on serial, is 100 hertz report time, and the CAN bus one supposedly does 500 hertz, which is super fast updates. Super fast updates. But yeah, you can, and then let me see if I can find the CAN one. I can't remember what the part number is on the CAN one. Man, I was outside for a couple hours this afternoon, and now my eyes are all itchy and gooped up, and I can have a hard time seeing. So if I'm blinking like a madman, you know why. Man, there's some cool gauges out here lately. That failsafe one's pretty stud. The failsafe with the flex fuel sensor. Oh. Where is the... Oh, here it is. There's the one I'm looking for. The CAN bus one is a little bit more expensive. So, I mean, it's just one of those ordeals like, is it worth the money? Probably not. Probably not worth spending the extra money. But it's a pretty easy option. Oh, Emerson, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, the user-defined parameters is not anything that you would ever need. Oh, Bill, the serial, you have to get a serial to USB that has a connection on it. You have to basically put a DB9 connector out of the gauge. It's just spare wires, and it's going to be like 2 wires for a serial bus, maybe 3. I can't remember off the top of my head. And there's 3 specific terminals that they need to land on, and then they plug the DB9 into the USB. And then that basically outputs the signal as a digital signal, so it is outputting whatever you see on the gauge as opposed to outputting something that needs to be scaled. S-Watts, 15 Silverado. Is there a way to make the gas pedal seem more sensitive? Yeah, go to the driver demand table and bump that thing up 15%. You'll be surprised. That will probably do exactly what you want to do. I didn't think that the 300300 had CAN out, Josh. It doesn't have the OBD2 port on it though, does it? Because the other one that I linked just now has the OBD2 port. That literally, it's got like a pass-through that you plug into your port, and then you can plug your scanner into it, and then it has a PID parameter that you log. Yeah, I honestly, Emerson, I don't know what people are using the user-defined parameters. There are some things that's voodoo even to me that's on the back end of these, where these guys are doing software development and stuff like that on these ECMs and, excuse me, They know a lot more about what's going on than I do on that side of it. Brendan asks, good evening. I was wondering if you have any of the 1999 to 2004 Fords. I do not, Brendan. We're going to get into some Fords. I'm going to shoot some videos on Fords eventually. But, I mean, that's I'll be honest with you, it's kind of a lower priority. A lot of the stuff that we talk about on the channel, though, applies to Fords. It applies to all vehicles. All vehicles are kind of the same in operation as far as air, spark, stuff like that. Yeah, I posted the link to that one, Andrew. It should be that the last link that I posted up there is the one that's 217, which is pretty good price for the OBD2 one. So, for some reason, I really got the hots for that failsafe one, though, that has the, shows you what the AFR is and the alcohol content. Squid asks, where's your cat? Squid, I don't have a cat. I don't know if that's what you're asking about, but I don't have a cat. Well, starting to get too many windows opened up here. Huh, that's interesting, Josh. I'll look into that. Yeah, I'll look into that. Maybe I've got some stuff sitting around that could probably figure out a way of possibly splicing that in and seeing if we can get that to work. So could be cool. Could be a good video. So I'll check that out and hopefully have something to report back maybe next Thursday on the show. Make sure I didn't miss anything on here. Yeah, Harry, I'm sorry. I just saw that you responded back. Yeah, check out the custom math stuff. In when you're in doubt, when you're building out these histograms, you can. Thanks, Squid. Appreciate it. $2 for where's your cat? You're my cat, Squid. Oh, my dog. Well, my dogs are probably downstairs with my wife. You want me to get the dog in here? Thanks for the donation there. Yeah, you can build out the... Let me jump over to the tune screen. Boom. And we'll open up the math here. Math parameters. You can always build out your own custom expressions. And the good thing is you can use the existing ones. And it tells you exactly what they are. So if you come in here and highlight these and copy them over to new math. Do the old Control-C method. Paste it in here. You can see that this 50119 is our EQ ratio sensor. So we know up in here where the 50119 is, that's what it's referencing. And then we can replace that with our existing stuff. So if you have to do, once again, say math, let me see if I can open one up here. I don't know if I've got one where I've had to do changes. Doesn't look like it. But if you have to do math to your EQ ratio, you can, as long as it's within this bracket. So you would have to do it kind of this way. You'd have to do parentheses, whatever your variable is. Well, it's getting kind of pissy there. AM. Da, da, da. So it's got parentheses on there. Leave the parentheses in there, but inside the parentheses, make sure you do your math. Divide it. 12.4. Yada, yada, yada. You know, just do all that. You can do a lot of stuff in there. Okay, got you. Thanks, Emerson. Appreciate it. Here, I'll get the dogs up here for you so you can see the dogs. Okay, come here. Hop up here. Oh, there we go. Stick your head up. Say hi to everybody. Everybody say hi to the Toon Dog. Okay, she wants to go back downstairs. Ross asks, what is an EQ ratio? Ross, EQ ratio is the lambda reading of basically your air to fuel ratio. So it is, without getting too complicated, it is the base, like, combustion of air and fuel is read in lambda. And then based on the fuel that you're running, there is a conversion. So if you hear somebody say that the stoic air to fuel ratio of gasoline is 14.7, that is equivalent to 1 lambda. Same ordeal though. The stoic air to fuel ratio of ethanol is 9.8 to 1, or 1 lambda. So all of those AFRs are calculated off of EQ ratio. So whenever you tune in EQ ratio, you are tuning in the natural, like, reading that your wideband gauges read in before it gets converted over through the math. And that's why with today's technology, with all the stuff that we're doing as far as with E85 and things like that, we want to tune in lambda. That's easier. So 1 is stoic. Anything below 1 is rich. Anything above 1 is lean. If I tell you, hey, you're running 10% lean on yours, you know it's going to show up as 1.1. If you're running 10% rich, it shows up as 0.9. So it's literally a percentage of how it, yeah, exactly. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, thanks, Emerson. I appreciate it. 7. My dog's name is 7. Hey, Casey, welcome, man. Good to hear. Glad to hear somebody's out there doing some tuning. So, I mean, we got a lot of people tuning here, so. Yeah, Emerson, the dog's name is 7 because my wife found her at a Sonic drive-thru in West Texas a few years ago, and she was feral, covered in ticks, fleas, all kinds of stuff, had staph infection. You know, we took her to the vet, spent a couple $1,000 getting her healed up, and we named her 7 because she was lucky. Harry, you're using the 300300 gauge wired analog 0 to 5 volts out. Is that okay? No, that's perfectly fine, Harry. If you have a ProLink and you want to use the analog, that is perfectly fine. I will never, talk crap on anybody for using the analog. It is what you're effectively doing is you're taking an analog signal from your wideband sensor, you're converting it to a digital signal in your controller, which is your gauge in that situation, and then you are converting it back to an analog signal through an analog out, which then reads it an analog in on your ProLink, which then converts it back to a digital signal. So it can get a little bit wonky. That's why I prefer to use the serial connection on those, because whenever it comes in as an analog signal from your sensor itself, the gauge converts it over to digital and it stays digital all the way through. So that being said, you're perfectly fine using the analog 0 to 5 volts, but I would probably look at doing the serial. Blue Fox asks, Star Wars or Star Trek? I mean, I don't know if you can see my Star Wars stuff down here. Right, boom, right there. And then I got some more up in this area. And I probably got some more Star Wars over there. Michael Breakall says, what up, bro? Dealing with some nasty idle knock right now. Michael, is that with, do you have a nasty cam on there? And do we know it is, yeah, exactly. Emerson says probably engine noise. Do we know that it is actually knock and not some kind of engine noise that is giving you false knock? Anish says, sir, brand new subscriber. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Can you make a detailed video on tow tuning and fuel economy tuning? I can. Yeah. He says, I assume it's advancing fuel and timing for the tow tuning and retarding fuel and timing for fuel economy. You know, that's quite a bit. You know, you're barking up the right tree in that situation. The big thing on just for fuel economy is cleaning up your air maps and keeping yourself on stoic as much as possible, because you're going to probably be rich in some situations. Though in closed loop you should be pretty dialed in, but you can also dial some timing out, just to keep yourself in a little less powered down, where you're not torquing as much stuff out. But I mean, toe tuning though is probably a good video to get together, because there is some situations where we might want to advance some timing to get some more torque, because timing can be directly related to torque. So S watts, yes, in on your throttle stuff, multiply the entire driver demand table by 1.15 and try that. Okay, Michael, Big Cam, have you done any idle cam tuning yet? Because if you got a big lopey cam, you probably need to pull out about 10 or 15 degrees down low. Let me give you a let me show you kind of what I'm talking about, Michael. We've talked about this a little bit, but let me give you a see if I can give you an okay, so if we're in park here, we've got our idle tuning table here. I'm going to pull this chart up here so you guys can kind of see. A little easier to, well, where'd you go? Come back here. A little easier to explain with a visual aid on here. This area in here is your idle area, Michael. And this stuff right here, this is not that bad actually. This tune would probably idle pretty decently with a cam, but a lot of this stuff needs to be down below 15 degrees of timing up to about 1,000 RPMs, if that makes sense. And I'm dragging all this down manually, but if you were to go back and look at that, this is the area that we're talking about. So I might come in here and put that down to 15. And then some of this stuff I might pull down to, say, 30. Not 309. 309 degrees of timing. Would not be happy. But work in this area of your idle tuning table, Michael, and dial that in if you haven't yet. Because stock values on this thing, on almost any car, the stock values for the stock cam, the idle timing will cause all kind of fits on very big cams. Reese says, thank you for all the help. Great channels, videos. I'm off now. Have a good night. Hey, Reese, appreciate you stopping in this morning over there in the land down under, brother. I appreciate all that you've done, all the participation and things. So thanks for stopping by the channel. Thanks for, spending your day off talking to us knuckleheads. Yeah, Harry, man, I love this stuff. I love it. I'm learning new stuff. I get to dive into platforms that I've not worked on previously. I get to expand my knowledge. I get to look at new ways of doing things. So, this is a win-win situation. I get to help people out to tune their vehicles better, and I get to learn more. And so I, really been enjoying the last couple months, and I enjoy all of the feedback that you guys have been throwing my way. So, oh man, I appreciate that too, man. I really do. As I said, that the patrons, we do some behind the scenes videos. I try to do some extra stuff for those guys. Then I do some tune review videos for patrons, where I'll pull up a patron's tune, I'll walk through some of the stuff, and then I'll post it for all the other patrons as long as everybody's cool with it. And then of course, that $15 a month tier, you get an email where you can actually send in your logs and tunes. I'll walk through them. And sometimes I'll shoot a video directly off of them to send back to you, or I'll just look out and say, oh, hey, here's, the issue that you're having. This is how you can fix that. So it's a great way, as opposed to spending hundreds of dollars, trying to go through a course. Andrew, if you are planning to run 87 all the time, should I mainly tune on the low octane table? You know, Andrew, if you are, I would, that's a good question. You're going to be probably in the low octane table. I would tune on the high octane table though, because you will still be using a lot of timing out of the high octane table and then it will pull back. A good way of doing that, Andrew, is to tune your high octane table and then whenever you're done, go in there, copy that thing over, paste it to your low octane table, and then take like 6 degrees out of the whole thing, maybe even 8. And then you've got 8 degrees that it can step down off the high octane table into the low octane table. Austin Emerson, glad you got the koozie. Atomic Punk, welcome back, man. I didn't know if you're going to show up tonight or not. It says, since watching your videos, able to rescale my VVE and Spark tables. Have made the most amount of progress in the past few months than the last year. Awesome, man. Glad to hear that. Thanks for stopping by the live stream here. And glad it's been working out for you. That's, man, I love hearing those success stories. Josh, you're headed in the right direction, brother. Just hit me up if you need help. Or start your first tune this weekend on the LQ4. Awesome, man. Anxious. Make sure you report in back next week and let me know how the LQ4 is going. I'll be anxious to get caught up on that. Anish, I'm going to do some Ford stuff here soon. I promise, man. I've got a backlog of videos to do. Period. But I do want to do a couple Ford reviews. Hey, Lowbuck, glad you stopped in, man. Really appreciate it. I need to watch your transmission rebuild video that you just put out. Ross, that's not that surprising. A lot of times there are stuff missing from some of the... Ross says, I've learned that HP tuners have about half the stuff available for the Ecotech 4-cylinder compared to your videos with V8s. And Ross is correct. In a lot of these situations, not all of these parameters are in there. That doesn't mean that the parameters don't exist. That just means that they have not mapped those parameters in. You can sometimes put a support ticket in asking for a specific parameter to the HP Tuner guys, and if they can find that parameter, they will include it on the next update that comes out. Hey, 325LS Sonoma, welcome back again, man. Why the logo change? You know, I don't know. I like this. I like the triple lambda, the lambda logo. VJ, hey, wondering on your own truck, what did you run for the Procharger, a blow-off valve or bypass valve? I have a tile on his P1SC1, not sure what spring to use though. I feel like I'm losing boost using a 2-pound spring. VJ, I am running a tile also. I'm running the one that vents to atmosphere, the blow-off valve. I'm using the supercharged spring. You should not be losing boost though. 2 pounds of differential on that. Once the throttle body is opened and you have equalized your air pressure across the throttle body, that should be enough to hold that thing closed. But that being said, you can run a 5 psi spring on there, but it may cause some fits on your air tune. Just a heads up on that. I ran a 5 psi spring originally on mine, and I have a 5 psi. I was running a different blow-off valve at that point in time. But on the 5 psi spring, I was getting some weird stuff. You definitely get a bigger, crisp, like explosion of air because it holds, you dump a lot more air pressure at once. But with that 2-pound spring, you should be good because the Procharger bypass valves and stuff like that, they basically have almost no spring pressure on those things. Anish, I appreciate that, sir. I really do. I appreciate all the people that sign up for the Patreon. You guys are the best. VJ, are you sure that you're not just maybe Are you getting any belt slip or something? Are you seeing any black dust around your head unit? Yes, that's where the logo is from. 325. It is a modified version of the Revenge of the Nerds logo for the Lambda 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 house, except that one had the Greek one, and this one has, well, I mean, it's technically still Greek, but it has the one that we see every day for Lambda. Casey, if you look down in the description, there's a link to the Patreon. There's two tiers. There's the $5 tier, which kind of gets you on just the behind the scenes videos and stuff like that. And then there's the $15 tier, which gets you access to the tuning email where you can send in tunes and logs. I'll go through them, help you, identify any issues that you might be having. Basically it's just kind of a tuning helpline, a one-on-one tuning helpline to specific problems for, to help people out whenever they're in the process. So it's down in the description. It's here. I'll just throw the link here. You can't click on that, but that's the website address. So. Oh, and on Sonoma, the other reason that I've switched over to the Lambda 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 one is it's a little bit easier whenever it comes to doing things like decals and stuff like that. The old goat head one, it was super complicated and stuff. Hey, Josh, awesome to hear, man. ABT, brother, always be tuning. Time to get back out there. Just keep the rat's nest off the gas pedal. Go get some tunes in. Go get some logs. Thanks, Casey. I appreciate it, man. Just check it out. Even if you don't sign up, you can follow the Patreon, and there's not a lot of content for followers, but even on the $5 ones, as said, we do some videos where patrons send in their current tune, and I'll walk through it for everybody and kind of highlight on some of the stuff that they've done right, and maybe some stuff where there's some room for improvement. And it's kind of just a learning session for everybody. It's a way to get more experience specifically on the tuning side of it. VJ, what's your displacement? 12 pounds up top on a P1 SC1 with a 3-inch pulley. Sounds like it might be a little bit low. But a lot of that is going to be dependent on your displacement, which intake and exhaust mods that you have. HJ over here asks, if I switch from the 0 to 5 volt analog to the blue serial wire output, how would I wire that in? Harry, don't worry about reinventing the wheel. If it's working for you and the data is syncing up properly, just leave it on the 0 to 5, brother. Yeah, VJ, I'm on an L83 and I'm getting well over 12 psi on a 3.2 inch pulley. Are you sure you're not spinning the belt though? Because that is a very small pulley to be running on that head unit. You should be able to log. Are you logging boost through your scanner whenever you're doing logs? $470 on the Mustang, man. That seems like it's a little low too. How far off are Mustangs normally compared to dyno jets, though? I don't know that I've ever done anything on a Mustang dyno. Hey, Paul, you showed up. That's all that matters, brother. Appreciate you swinging by. You made it just in time. We're talking about VJ's L83 that's Pro Charged, much like my setup. Oh, you're not? There's Paul or VJ. Your setup's pretty close to mine, except that I'm running an L86 intake manifold, and I've got a K-Tech ported throttle body. Uh, you know, I'm running, but are you running an intercooler? Let me ask you that. Are you running the ProCharger intercooler on your setup, VJ? Because if that's the case, then you're making about what you should be making as far as boost goes. 470 on a Mustang, yeah, that sounds about right. That'd be 12% less than a dyno. So that would make more sense that if you would be up in the 525 range on a dyno jet. I would think that you would be close to 600 at the crank with that setup. Hey, Jeremy, welcome back, man. It's good to see you again. We're getting ready to wrap up here soon, guys. If anybody's got one more question to throw out there before we call it a night, throw it out now. And in the meantime, I will kind of do my wrap-up spiel here of thanking everybody, thanking all the new subscribers. I'm guessing by now we've broken 3,300. Mind blown. I didn't expect to even break 3,000 by now, much less 3,300. My goal was to hit 5,000 by October 31st, by Halloween. There's no doubt in my mind we're gonna be close to breaking 5,000 before October. You guys are amazing. Thank you for everybody that's been sharing stuff. Yes, Josh, your scanner does save logs automatically. So, it will be in a different folder than what normally pops up. I know that's cryptic, but if you go into your documents and HP tuners, look for VCM scanner, and then there's a log folders in there, and it will have logs with date and timestamps on there. Thanks, Ross ABT, brother. Yeah, VJ, if you are running the intercooler, 12 psi is about right on that pulley then, because you're gonna be losing about 2 to 3 psi across that intercooler most likely. Hey Harry, we're going to get 50,000 here soon, so you guys have been awesome. You guys are driving all the traffic, so I'm just making this stuff. Anish, nitrous stuff one day. Yeah, we could talk about some nitrous stuff. I have never ran nitrous, but that doesn't mean that I won't. I'm the kind of guy that I will go out and buy a nitrous kit and install it on something if you guys want to see how I do nitrous. It's pretty straightforward, though. You know, there's some timing considerations to be made on that, but as long as you're running a wet kit, it's not too crazy. So, well, guys, I think that about wraps it up for tonight. I've had a long day. Half of this crap probably won't make sense. If anybody's watching this video after the fact, let me know if the audio's worked out a little bit better. I know that there were some complaints that the audio was low, and I know last weekend's it was just trash. It sounded like I had a, can of marbles jammed in my face. Brian, I'm already about to dial the Supercharger back because it's making a little bit more power than that truck needs to be making. I don't want to shoot a rod out the side of it. It's been fun, but it doesn't need to be making 700 at the crank. So there's some considerations to be made on that stuff. But listen, guys, once again, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for the thumbs up. The likes are what drives all the traffic. You guys have been the best. I love each and every one of you. ABT, always be tuning. If you have any questions, hit up the comments down below. Make sure you tune in next Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, for another episode of In Tune with the Goat Rope Garage. And as always, thanks for stopping by the garage. Woo!